So what exactly is going on with the truckers, with New York City, and with Trump? So long story short, Trump is now accused and found guilty of $355 million of fraud. He has to pay that back to the city of New York, or else they might actually seize some of their buildings, like the Trump Tower or the one on Park Ave. They also have several other properties around the U.S. And Trump, in my personal opinion, and I'll show you some other testimonies from other multi-millionaires out there about their thoughts about the situation. People are feeling that this is very unjust. The whole trial was very biased, and Trump was at a major disadvantage. And people were saying that Trump didn't really do anything wrong. So now truckers are going on social media and they're protesting, boycotting, and refusing to take shipments to New York City. Now, one thing that every viewer needs to know is not every single trucking agency, not every single trucker is refusing shipments. But if New York just gets like less than 5% or less than 10% of shipments, they will actually crumble the city because everything gets more expensive. Not to mention, New York is already handling the migrant crisis terribly right now. So look at this video on X. You already have several truckers going on social media and talking about this. Many truckers are pretty much showing their frustration about the ex-president. They feel like Trump was falsely accused, and many are now boycotting their shipments to New York City. And it's not just going to be the individual truckers, because this movement on social media is becoming bigger than ever before. We also have companies not shipping product to New York City. If you also look at Callahan Auto, they would not be shipping product to New York City. They are utilizing independent truckers as much as possible to make sure they don't have to either. And now you have some shipping companies, some of the smaller guys refusing shipments to New York. And this isn't just going to be hurting New York City's economy in the long term, but also showing off a statement. We're not really exactly sure how much damage this is causing to the New York City economy. You got one side saying that it's not really doing much, and the other side says it is. But let's see what happens. I found this to be pretty interesting. Not to mention, this is very bad press for New York. Now, let's talk about the whole entire fraud case, because this is the most interesting thing. Kevin O'Leary actually educates a CNN host about the whole Trump fraud trial and why every developer in America will be penalized like Trump if treated the same way. So two things to get out of this. One is you'll probably think Trump was treated in a way that's different from other developers. And two is if this is the way New York City is going to operate, every single investor is going to be throwing themselves and running away from the city. So O'Leary said, excuse me, what fraud? You got a developer that builds a building and says it's worth $400 million. Fine. And he wants to borrow $200 million from the bank. Happens every day, everywhere around the world. This is basic economics. Now, this type of business is very normal. It's how it works. The bank that was supposedly defrauded testified and said that we didn't lose anything. We want to do business with Trump, and they'll like to continue. But the judge said no. Now, here's the thing. Banks aren't dumb either, because if the building isn't worth $400 million, the bank isn't going to get you $200 million loans, right? The bank probably went to the building and was like, okay, this is like a big building. It's a skyscraper in Manhattan. It is worth that much money. Let's let the guy take out a loan. So this is what's happening here. Let's penalize this developer for almost $400 million. And O'Leary also continues that if they continue to do this, let's penalize all developers across America. They're all doing the same thing. Maybe all of them should go to jail. And maybe we should just stop building buildings. And this is the message that people are getting from New York. And it's causing a pretty decent ripple, right? Grant Cardone, which is pretty famous on social media, is saying that he's going to be pulling out a lot of his assets and investments from New York City to other areas. And this is going to cause some big repercussions. Now, there's also other rumors in the rumor mill saying that the reason why they're doing this is to maybe raise more capital for the migrant crisis. You guys don't know what's going on. Mayor Eric Adams lets in almost 100,000 people to this tiny city of New York, and they're going broke. And you may be asking, how is one of the richest cities on planet Earth, New York City, GDP, just the city alone, is worth more than some countries around the world. And they're going broke? What's going on here? Mayor Adams says that migrants will be getting $13 a day in prepaid credit cards. This is pretty crazy. Now, $13 a day may not seem much. I know some of you guys probably spent $13 on a Chipotle meal. But when you have $13 a day for 40, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 people, and the number just keeps skyrocketing every single day, they're going broke, right? New York already has high crime. They got very high robbery. Shoplifting is very common. NYPD stretched to the brim. The city is already very chaotic as it is. You get in almost 100,000 migrants and you're giving them a bunch of money every single day. Yeah, of course the city is going broke, right? Not to mention the shelters, the hotels, the 3 meals a day, all this kind of stuff is forcing the city to spend way more cash than needed. And the federal government is not helping. Migrant pressures are affecting the budgets of 3 major U.S. cities, New York, Chicago, and especially Denver, because the population is only 700,000, but they have about 50,000 migrants, almost the same as Chicago, which has triple the population. Now, New York City is still doing pretty poorly because they're the one who kind of started the whole sanctuary thing. But the S&P global ratings, these are the official numbers, are showing that many of these cities are now pretty much adjusting their budgets to accommodate the rising cost of migrants. State and federal government support is little to none. They're refusing to get into this because it's costing so much money. This is why you're seeing a lot of videos on X about the sanctuary city government and these leaders and mayors going to Washington to beg for more money because they're going broke. I mean, can you imagine New York City going broke? Tell people outside of the U.S. that New York's going broke and they need more money. They'll probably laugh at you. They're like, how is that even possible? New York's the financial capital of the world. This is where the NASDAQ and everything is located. How is New York City going broke? And not to mention, New York is already getting a lot of corporations pulling out. America right now is having one of the biggest adjustments in its country's history. We're seeing non-traditional finance cities like Miami, Austin, and Vegas becoming financial hubs. Even Toronto, they say, is becoming the new Manhattan in the north. So New York City is already getting its business snatched. Now you got this whole entire Trump case, which looks very, very bad for real estate developers because New York City literally runs on real estate. And no wonder many of the truckers are pretty mad and fierce by this whole entire situation. Let's see what's going to happen to the boycott. Like I said in the beginning video, not every trucker is boycotting New York City. Not every company is boycotting New York City. But if you just get 1%, 2%, 3%, 5%, 10% of cargo being boycotted, New York City will probably get on its knees. So right now, we're not exactly sure either about what's going to happen to the Trump trial. But Trump is now found guilty. They're kind of forced to pay this penalty. And you already have one of the attorneys in New York City. People are covering this. She wants to be seizing Trump's assets. Trump owns several towers and several luxury buildings and accommodations in New York City, right? And it's probably going to be gone. Chances are he probably has to pay unless something super crazy happens. Let's see what happens to Trump, right? Trump, maybe he has to sacrifice Trump Tower. Maybe he has to sacrifice the one in Park Ave. Who knows? Thanks for watching, guys. Comment below, and see you later.